Welcome everybody here to the Basketball Passport. I'm Anthony Irwin. No intro video today because we are running a little bit late and I forgot to add one. But
I love the honesty, man. Transparency. That's what it's all about.
Look, if you're gonna screw up, like we're gonna learn. We'll come back to actually this is a perfect lead-in because of a topic a little bit later in the show about trying to make excuses and stuff like that, and how sometimes you just got to put down the shovel and stop digging. And
Exactly, man.
And in this case, I forgot to load an intro video, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that shovel down. Lessons learned in 10 or so years of marriage. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about the Alex Caruso, Josh Giddey trade after the Bulls took down the Lakers over the weekend and the Thunder continue to roll. We'll discuss whether at this point we can call it a win-win or what shade of gray we want to land on there. The Clippers pushed those Thunder to the brink. They played the Thunder really well over the weekend. The Thunder, I would say, got a couple fortunate calls down the stretch of that game and were able to pull out that win. But still, Kawhi is looking good, and that team is looking good at the right time of year. Might be looking at the Western Conference playoffs looking even tougher, which is exactly what we needed in that conference. And then, like I alluded to earlier, Mark Cuban did a podcast in which he was asked about the Luka Doncic trade, and that video is very telling on multiple levels, both his answer and his honesty about the trade, but also in the CYA aspect of it publicly. So I'll grab that video. And we will talk about it when we get there. But first, Leigh, thank you very much for popping on here, and how you holding up?
Not too bad. Flying solo this week, so anyone there with the kids knows that that always adds another element of fun to things. Ooh. So we're very exciting. But no, good. I mean, I was down at the Hawks games on Saturday and Sunday. Got a couple of good wins against the Warriors there on Saturday night, and then the Sixers, who, I mean, they had, I think, 8 players healthy last night. But I tell you what, again, tanking is a scourge of the league. There's no question about it. But it's just not the players. Players players compete.
It's the organization, yeah.
And the Sixers last night, I mean, Quentin Grimes is their best player. He's a good player, but they just fought the Hawks to the end. I mean, it was double digits, but it wasn't like the Hawks just blew them out and they were resting everyone down the stretch. I mean, the Hawks had to close it out. And that's the thing. That's what's so interesting about the whole tanking, thing, that it's not about teams. It's not about the players who go out there, because once they're on the floor, they want to compete and they think they can beat anybody. Yeah. But it's just teams who mail it in. So the Sixers last night, obviously, no Embiid, no Maxey, no George, no Gordon, no Lonnie Walker as well. But they hung in there. So it's good for the Hawks to get a couple of wins. They got had a nice little home stretch there and got themselves 2-game buffer over the Magic for that sort of home court advantage for the play-in game, which is should be interesting. Could go any way, that one. Yeah. Anyway.
I feel like I've been thinking about this a lot about tanking, and I honestly, I think the fans suffer from it, or because of it. But even there, like if you're a Sixers fan, were you really having that much fun watching Joel Embiid play this year anyway?
Yeah.
So normally those teams that tank, their fans are pretty sick of watching them anyway. They kind of check out over the course of the season anyway. So it kind of sucks, but it also is just kind of the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
For me, the people I feel worst for are the players that play for those organizations, because they are now known as tankers, right? They are known as leaders of the tank and stuff like that. And I don't think the players really want to be seen that way. So I landed on a solution of sorts, or at least the beginning of a solution. I think a team should be able to elect to say, we're tanking.
Right.
This is rather than all this,
pretending they're not.
Yeah. What was it? Dog and pony show, whatever we want to call it. This, rather than, saying, oh yeah, this guy's nursing a hamstring issue. Yeah. You just saw him dunk, but you should see him when he's not on the court, I think if a team can go to the league and then say, yes, we're tanking, whatever we do from here on out, the point is to lose games. That informs bettors. That makes that kind of clears it with gambling partners, which is a thing that matters now. And then, most importantly, as part of that decision, that team has to pay out every likely and unlikely bonus to all of their players.
Yeah.
All of them. Because some of those guys, when they're being told to sit, like right now, the Raptors are doing this thing where there's another team too doing it. The Jazz are doing this thing where they won't sit a player for the entirety of the game. But in the fourth quarter, all of their best players sit. Tom Haberstroh of Yahoo has done a really good job of researching this. And you'll have Scotty Barnes be playing really, really well. The Raptors will be in position to at least compete for a win, and then they won't. And then Scotty would just sit there, and everybody's kind of looking around like, wait, what is going on? And look, under this solution, if a team wants to go to the league, if the Raptors want to go to the league and be like, yeah, we won in on the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, they could do that, but all of the bonuses that Scotty Barnes might be missing out on because of that lack of playing time, he gets paid out for all of them, and it becomes a really expensive proposition. So either a team can elect to do it, or even more embarrassing, if a league finds out or figures out through even circumstantial evidence that it looks like a team is tanking, then the team forfeits their ability to make that decision for themselves. They are now on the hook for all of those bonuses, and they're known as the team that thought they could outsmart the system.
And you have to give fans money. You have to slash ticket prices into a third of whatever they paid.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
If you're paying $250 or more for a seat, and the team's like, we're not even trying, you should get all of your money back, because that's again what it comes down to, is like fans turn then on the league, and it's like, man, especially these days, everything costs $1,000 to do anything. It's just not a fun experience. And like last night, for example, again, now some of the guys are injured, I get it, but you see jerseys for Tyrese Maxey and that, and people who have a connection to him, maybe through a family or a friend or whatever, they go there, they want to see him play, and he's not playing. Now, if he's injured, fine, but if the Sixers have just decided that's it for the season, then there has to be some sort of
free beer or free food.
Yeah, something to compensate the fans, or refund them, at least give them the option of saying, all right, because that's where I think it sucks. And again, I've said this before, and I truly think the NBA should, because the lottery system has, they've changed it to try to reduce it, but it's not working. I don't think. You've got 5 teams right now trying to just mail it in. So I would say whoever finishes with the worst and second worst, they just don't get a pick. And then it's not even a lottery after that for the teams that didn't make the playoffs. It's a lottery for everybody. So the Cavs could get the number 1 pick. And I would be fine with that, because I just hate how the reward is still there, the incentive is still there to be bad. And so I wouldn't have a problem if the Lakers got the number 1 pick this year and they made the conference finals or wherever, because they're trying to go for it. And it's like, hey, well, they tried, and the basketball gods rewarded them, but this, everyone just lying down with weeks and in some cases months to go in the season to try to get that number 1 pick. I just think it's terrible. And so the NBA has to just remove the incentive to do it.
Yeah.
And
if the end result is the same.
Yeah.
Which is you are fixing games. You are losing games on purpose. How is what any of these teams or executives that are telling their teams to tank any different from players betting on themselves, literally betting on themselves and throwing games and throwing that outcome? How is it any different?
Yeah,
it's the same end result.
Yeah. And Sam Presti's argument was like, he basically said, I am tanking strategically, and it paid off, and it cost him his job in the end. But his argument was always
Sam Hinkie.
Oh, who did I say?
Presti.
Oh, Sam. Yeah, not Sam Presti.
I wish Sam Presti would lose his job. We're going to talk
Sam
about
Hinkie,
him in a bit. Lose his job and then get hired by my favorite team.
But he always said, like, teams through incompetence sort of, stumble and bumble around to get the number one pick. But he was like, I'm going for it and I'm just mailing it in. And there was
Yeah.
no real way of stopping him. But ultimately, the NBA somewhat did by stepping in. But yeah, it's obvious. You don't need to sort of have a great big investigation. You can just look at the teams and the players and how they're trying to, game the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's nothing has really changed, and that's why I
Well,
think they need more drastic. Like, right, we're just taking draft picks off teams. That's the only way we can stop. So that if the Wizards and the Jazz finish last and second last, and it could be two from the same conference, doesn't matter. It's like
yeah.
bad luck, man. You don't get a draft pick this year. You have to be better through free
Yeah.
agency, through whatever. But you're
Well,
not
what's
getting
even
that. You're not getting your hands on Cooper Flag for mailing in a whole season.
Yeah. What's even worse now is that you have teams like the Thunder did this for a while, and the Raptors are trying to do this right now, and the Utah Jazz are doing it right now, where they have talent. Like they have legit talent on their teams that should be winning more. They have good coaches in place that should be helping their teams win more. And then as soon as that player arrives at that team that through the final third of their season, in order to get that high end draft lottery talent, that team is just and everybody kind of looks around and is like, wow, how did that turn around and take place so quickly? And the fans are excited that they got the high end talent as a result of it, but they also had to watch really bad basketball. And again, they
Yeah.
were throwing games to be able to make that happen. And like it is. You called it a scourge on the league, and I would agree. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive on into another scourge of the league, the Chicago Bulls. Who gave
Love it,
the
man.
Oklahoma City Thunder Alex Caruso for no draft compensation. Now the trade is looking a little bit better because Josh Giddey is playing significantly better this year than he did last year. Played brilliantly in that game against the Lakers over the weekend. And in their own way, the Chicago Bulls have kind of done exactly what they were hoping in trading Giddey or in trading for Giddey and trading away Alex Caruso. They made their team just a little bit less mediocre, slightly below mediocre, because that's the extent that Jerry Reinsdorf wants to go because he cares most about mediocrity. And they are in decent position either for the play-in or for the lottery, whatever. And the Thunder are thrilled with the return on Alex Caruso, so thrilled that they extended him basically as soon as they could. Leigh, now looking back on it, given the way that everything is played out, would you call it a win-win, or what kind of term would you use for this?
Well, there's something about the Zach LaVine trade that has kickstarted Josh Giddey, because in January he was averaging 10 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, reasonable numbers if you just throw them out there, but shooting 43, 36 and 83% from the field. Since February, and then more significantly since the All-Star game, he's played 11 games, 22 points a game, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, nearly 2 steals, and his shooting splits. This is not made up. 53% from the field, 52% on 4 threes a game, and 85% from the free throw line. And he is just out there right now. I mean, he almost had a quadruple double, as you sort of alluded to there, against the Lakers the other night, in just a staggering performance, to the point where he's gone from like, what's his contract next season, to like all of a sudden he's going to get a bag. Now, is it because they traded Zach LaVine? Was Zach LaVine holding him back, or has something else happened there? It's certainly one of the most remarkable turnarounds mid-season that I can remember. But he is just playing with a really high level of confidence right now. And I know Luka had 29 the other night and 7 threes, but I actually thought Josh, when he defended him, did a reasonable job. But more importantly, I just thought he danced around the Lakers offensively and did basically whatever he wanted. Part of that was a bit of a sort of, maybe there was a bit of a malaise with the Lakers' attitude there. Obviously, LeBron was back, and maybe they did just think, it's the Bulls, we've got this one. But they got drilled at home, and Giddey was huge for that. And so he now enters restricted free agency this season, and the Bulls are in the play-in tournament right now, would have at least one home game against the Heat. And the way that they're playing and the way that Giddey's playing right now, you wouldn't put it past Chicago to go from they were in 10th spot for, I think, 80 days. Steph No had he was, now they've soared up to ninth. But the main thing is they're playing.
Their fans are so angry about
Oh,
it too.
I know. It doesn't make any sense. But Josh Giddey's turnaround also doesn't make any sense, particularly, again, that 3-point shooting that from February onwards is over 50%, and he's taking more or less 5 a game since the trade. And it's, I mean, I just don't quite know how to even sort of articulate what it is, because nobody saw this coming. I mean, they've won 7 of their last 10, the Bulls. As I say, they got out of the 10th only to go to 9th. But it's like, oh, okay, maybe Josh Giddey is their point guard going forward. So going back to the original question, I mean, the trade was clearly a win at the time for the Thunder. Everyone's like, man, you got Caruso for that? Like, and he has been good. But I think right now it's starting to come back to, maybe tipping towards the Bulls.
I still think the Thunder went out pretty heavily because just Caruso has you get to play him like in a 6-man role, and he's a first team all NBA defender from a year ago, and you get to bring that off of your bench. And the Thunder seem poised they're the favorites. They should be the favorites to win the championship this year. And if they win a championship and Caruso figures heavily into that equation for a championship, then I think that's kind of the end all. Like, I always kind of laughed at the people who are like, did the Lakers give up too much for Anthony Davis right after they won a championship? It's like, that's the point, guys. That's what we're here for. So I think but I do think it has swung back, to where the Bulls could say, like, it's nearing win-win territory. And honestly, had the Bulls gotten a first-round pick along with Josh Giddey, I would say win-win. I would say that's perfectly fine. What drove me so insane was that the Thunder have all of the picks for the next 5 years. It feels like you couldn't get one from them for Caruso, not one.
I mean, especially again with Presti, who's like, he insists on picks coming his way. It's like, put him under the pump for a change. Say, hey, give us one.
Exactly. So I would still say the Thunder win out, pretty easily, but Giddey's play has made it so that it's not the Luka trade, which we will talk about in a little bit. The Thunder beat Alex Caruso. Actually, Caruso's final 2 minutes of that game last night were just absolutely incredible. The Thunder came back and beat the Clippers late in the Intuit Dome. They overcame the wall, and still though, the Clippers are starting to really look like themselves. The Clippers are Kawhi Leonard has earlier this season I watched Kawhi play. And have you ever played basketball, Leigh, with shoes that don't have very much grip on them?
Yeah, hate it.
It's the worst, and you don't really quite, you don't quite trust any of your movement there. And then every so often you just think, oh, screw it, I'm going to go. And then your feet slip out from under you and you look like a doofus. That's kind of what it was like watching Kawhi play earlier this year, where he was just he didn't look like he trusted any of his lower extremities. But now he's starting to look really, really good. James Harden has been fantastic this year. Norm, I almost called him Norm McDonald. But Norm is looking really good this year. And all of a sudden, Zubats, I think, has a real case to be a top 5 center, I would say, in the NBA.
Yeah.
That team looks really good. It's super deep. They come at you in waves. The Bogey trade, I think, has looked, pretty good as well. I think it'll look even better next year. What do you think about the Clippers?
Yeah, well, Bogey, that was their first home loss since the Bogey trade. So that just shows you that they have been playing really, really well at home. They smoked Cleveland about a week or so ago in Cleveland when the Cavs went through that real weird 4-game losing streak. But, this is sort of the thing for the Clippers. Like, there's no drama around that team right now. And this is the way they need it to be. Like, it's like, I mean, James Harden was an all-star again. And it's like, there's something always goes wrong with the Clippers. Something always falls apart. Something, is going to go. Someone's going to get injured, whatever. But right now they're just kind of cruising along, and you can afford that loss there to the Thunder because the Thunder are best team in the league right now. So that's okay to drop one. And looking at their schedule coming up, it's going to be very interesting because they're in such a dogfight there. Everyone's in a dogfight there in the West for those final play-in spots, but they go, they've got the New York doubleheader, and then they've got Cleveland and Orlando, all these games on the road before they come home for a fairly soft finish from there. They've got the Pelicans, two against the Mavs at home, and the Spurs, then the Rockets, Kings, and Warriors to close it out. But, for the Clippers, I think that obviously everyone's trying to get into that 6th spot at worst. But I also sort of think out of the Wolves, Clippers, Kings, and Suns right now, I think the Clippers are probably the best team. The Wolves do have a slightly better record, but for the teams to come out of the playoffs or out of the play-in, I really like the Clippers, and they would probably look at the Rockets, who are playing pretty well right now as well, and just think, it's that youngish team versus the experienced team. And you mentioned Zubats, who's a handful there. Şengün's a very talented player, but in the playoffs, that's where that experience should pay off for the Clippers. Again,
yep.
James Harden's playoff adventures are well documented. But
I kind of feel like there is like a balance that James Harden is over here, but Kawhi has been a playoff killer.
Yeah.
He has been incredible. So I kind of think you can kind of even out James Harden's playoff gaffes and Kawhi's incredible runs.
Yeah, I mean, I think though for the Clippers, the Rockets is probably the best matchup for them. I don't think they would, they would want to face. Well, I mean, it's tough actually, isn't it? When you think of all those teams, I mean, they probably won't face the Thunder. Well, they probably wouldn't want the Thunder. No one would want the Thunder in the first round. But if they were to somehow face either the Nuggets or the Rockets, I think they would obviously prefer them over OKC. But it's funny because as well, and it's like Charles Barkley said the other day, the Clippers have just always sucked, and that's not completely true. They have made the playoffs and they've been close. It just feels like something's always kind of blown up for them. Yeah. So But again, I think with Bogey, I think that has been a great pickup for them. He needed a change. He's enjoying his role out there, and they've had success. So we'll see until the wheels fall off there at the most unexpected time.
Yeah, the West is just so freaking tough. I'm looking at the standings right now, and I'm trying to find the right place for the Lakers to sit. And I actually think where they are right now at the 4 seed is probably the best place to be because and that involves facing the Oklahoma City Thunder in the second round, and they might be a juggernaut that we just aren't giving enough credit to. But yeah, the Lakers sit right now 4th, the Grizzlies, who have been slumping, sit 5th. But that allows you to avoid playing the Golden State Warriors, who have been playing incredible basketball since the Jimmy Butler trade. The Warriors sit 6th. They'll play the Nuggets in the first round if everything's plays out this way, and it won't. There's going to be a whole bunch of shuffling.
It's going to be Lakers Warriors first round. Take that to the bank. It's going to be.
Yeah, the ghost of David Stern is going to make that happen. He's like the Undertaker gif where he sits up in his casket, make that happen, and then he lies back down.
I spoke to Ray Ritter, the Warriors' outstanding PR man, because the Warriors were here on Saturday, and I said, doesn't matter really what happens from here. It's just going to be Lakers Warriors first round. It's going to happen, and he was just sort of
whether it's first round, second round,
exactly,
whatever round, it's destined to happen at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Rockets, quote unquote, reward for finishing second could be either the Timberwolves, who've been playing fantastic basketball. Of late. I think they won something I don't know if the streak is still alive, but at one point they won 13 straight games that Julius Randle played in. That was the number one question with them was, can they figure out how to play with him? Or the Clippers, who we just talked about. The Thunder do get a nice reward for coming in first because the Kings are a bit of a mess, and the Suns are one of the most catastrophic failures in the modern era of the NBA. But everybody else is just brutal matchup after brutal matchup. And by the way, the Dallas Mavericks might get Anthony Davis back tonight.
Yeah,
He
I
was
think
just
so.
listed as questionable on their. So if they get AD and maybe Lively I think Lively could come back this year, and Gafford might be able to come back this year.
Yeah.
And now you get that crazy front court. Now you don't have Kyrie Irving, and there's no real engine to their offense. But the Thunder's bugaboo this year has been size. That is the biggest front court in the sport right now. There in Dallas, that could be an interesting matchup in 1 through 8 too. So, and that's if Dallas jumps up to the 10 spot or the 9 spot and knocks off, one of these other teams there. But if it is indeed, Clippers Thunder in the first round, think about the storylines there with Shea being the centerpiece of that trade. What the West, man. And then you look over at the East and it's just like, 3 great teams and a whole bunch of YMCA squads. I'm not bitter.
I go to the NBA.com standings and every team in the East is on a win streak right now, except in the playoffs or play-in, the top 10 teams. They're all got the green. So unbelievable. Never seen that before.
That's fair. All right. Let's go ahead. I hope this added already. It did. So Mark Cuban went on the Bear in the Cave podcast, I believe is what it's called. And was asked about the Luka trade, and it led to, this is a 3-minute exchange. I'll just kind of play the most important part of it. And this is from my buddy Kirk, who found it on Reddit. This is Mark Cuban talking about that Luka Doncic trade, which everybody in Dallas is running as fast as they possibly can away from.
I have no idea.
Wait, is that for real?
No, I'm lying.
But like it's beyond.
If I had any influence, yeah.
But just to lay things out for people who might not know, because literally the last time I saw you, I think it was about fresh news that you had sold your majority shares in the Mavericks, and you're like, it's a great situation where I sold the team, but I still have operational control.
Basketball, yeah, that was the mission.
But what part of basketball do you control, and what do you not?
I don't
control?
Anymore, and I haven't for a while.
So you relinquished all of it.
I didn't relinquish. They kind of
muscled it out of you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say muscled, but the majority owner, Patrick Dumont, decided that he was comfortable with Nico Harrison, the general manager, and the team he had put together, which is his choice.
His choice.
I mean, and you can't totally argue with him because we went to the finals.
Yes.
Now I could tell you, but yeah, it was his choice, and he made his choice, and so I'm just a fan now.
You were in the position.
I'm just a fan now. Mark Cuban says, to distance himself from probably the most unpopular trade in NBA history from a hometown team. And here's where I take a little bit of issue from it. What he's saying there is not untrue, right? Obviously, Dumont has kind of taken over the final say in that organization, as ownership tends to. We'll see what happens with Whit Grusbeck in Boston, as he apparently he is going to continue operating as the team's governor for the first 3 years or so. I would imagine he's going to be cutting a lot of those costs. Actually, it just dawned on me. That's why they would have Grusbeck do that, because they have to cut salary and they want him to make those final decisions on his way out the door. All right. I feel better. But Cuban, though, initially when the sale first went through, went on a nice media tour telling everybody that, nope, don't worry, I'm still going to be here. I'm going to guide them through the beginning stages of ownership. I'm going to be the final decision maker on this stuff. And anybody who is, paid any attention to ownership situations in sports could have said at the time, that's not normally how this goes. You buy something so that you get the final say over it.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, eventually, he didn't want to say that they muscled it out of him. But they were able to basically kind of say, all right, there's the door, Mark. There's your seat in the first few rows there that you can still sit in, but we got this now. And that is Mark Cuban's way of kind of distancing himself from this trade. The problem, however, is who hired Nico Harrison and who hired Jason Kidd in the first place. That was Mark Cuban. And that's where, if I'm a Mavs fan, it's like, okay, well, it's nice that you get to say this so you can sleep at night, but you still hired the guy who made the dumbest trade in NBA history. So thanks for nothing, Mark.
Yeah.
Where do you sit watching that?
Well, Mark as an owner was one of the most hands-on owners. He wanted his fingerprints on everything. But I sort of, in this case, probably do lean towards him being like, there's no way he would have made that.
He wouldn't have done that. No.
And if he had the sway or the power, then he wouldn't have done it. And so I mean, my theory is that they kept him out of it because they, in some ways, I want to say you don't have any power anymore. You don't have any say. And I think from what I'm taking a sort of psychological approach here that Nico Harrison, based on this trade alone, likes to show he's the one who calls the shots and he's the one who made this decision. And he wanted to, he made this kind of personal, I think, by getting, trading Luka away, not being persuaded to, but saying, look, I'm the boss. I've got the big boy pants on. And so I think they probably kept Mark Cuban in the dark because it's a way of saying to him, you have no power. We don't care what you think anymore. Who knows what the truth is and what the ultimate final decision was. But I base that on what Nico's done in the past. And I also base it on the fact that when Dumont went to, I think, his first home game after the trade and he was roundly booed by the fans and he was sort of like, what are they booing me for?
No, they were saying Dumont.
Right.
Yeah. Don't, you're good.
And so I think that's the sort of belief that they completely misunderstood what they were doing and didn't realize whatever the business reason was, and I know part of it was they didn't want to pay him the $345 million or whatever, but from a basketball standpoint, just an insane decision, completely insane. And so that's where I sort of think Cuban was kept in the dark. And because he drafted Luka. You're right, he hired those other guys, Kidd and Harrison, but he drafted Luka, and it was like that's the Dirk replacement right there. It fell into their lap. The Hawks should never have traded him, but then again, the Kings and the Suns should have also drafted him as well. But it fell into their lap. They gave up, Trae Young and another pick, which I think was Cam Reddish in the end. So they gave Luka. When you look back at who Luka's been traded for, it's like, what? That's it. For his entire career, it's like that's all that people got for a Luka Doncic. So, weird stuff. But again, I think I sort of think when you are an owner, when you come in, it's like when a new GM comes in. They don't. It doesn't matter who the coach is and who the assistants and the players are. A GM just says, "Well, I've inherited these guys. I want to make my own." Mark. And again, you look at what Ishbia did in Phoenix there. It's a trait with owners and GMs that when they come in, they want to make a splash and they want to basically say to the old regime, this ain't your house anymore.
Yeah. No, I'm with you in what actually happened here with Mark Cuban. You could just tell from his tone that this is a guy who is just kind of dumbstruck, because I believe he still maintains some ownership.
He does a stake, it was like when he bought the Mavs off Ron Perot, I think it was, or Ross Perot. He still owned a stake. So a lot of times that's part of the negotiation. Is like I still just want a little piece of the pie, but it's they usually in that sense the contract's like you can own the team, but you have no say decision making ability or power.
The reason I say that is because his now smaller asset, smaller stake in this asset is significantly less valuable than it was before. So even just from a sheer businessman's perspective, he is looking at this like, you did what, so I do kind of feel for the guy because he also had mentioned how close he was with Luka's family and that as well. And I do feel for Mark Cuban in that sense. But I just keep kind of coming back to again, Kirk, who hosts Pod Maverick and is the site runner there at Mavs Moneyball, and his co-host Josh Bowe. You know, they both made the point, and it's a really salient point. If they would have gone through a more thorough search process, because basically he just landed on Nico Harrison, and he landed on Jason Kidd, and they'd never really considered anybody else for those positions. And so, like, if they had hired people better at that job, maybe Dallas still has Luka Doncic, you know, and now look, it might just be that Patrick Dumont, to your point, wants his superstar, not a superstar he inherits, but he wants to draft the superstar, and he wants to be the face of whoever that next, you know, or acquire the superstar. Okay, I mean that does sound like a very dumb new owner thing to do, but yeah, at the end of the day, it was a giant mistake here on Dallas's part. And if I were a Mavs fan, I wouldn't have any time for anybody trying to distance themselves from this, because a series of mistakes would have had to take place in a row for you to arrive at trading Luka Doncic. And I think Mark Cuban was one of those missteps. One of those missteps along the way was hiring Nico in the first place, given what he was apparently capable of the entire time that he was there. Like, I want to know how many bad ideas Nico had that Mark Cuban squashed.
I mean, that's a great question. How many, you know, how many no's were there? How many were like, what the hells were there before he had to sign off on one or two of them?
You can't spell Nico without no. Like, it's just, I need to know, like, what that email train was like.
Well, that's right. No one's batting 1,000. So, you know, it's like, that would be
200.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and round out the show with a new brand of destination, the Jimmy Butler edition.
So on Saturday the Warriors were here, and post game I was in the locker room, and Jimmy is one of those guys who in the off season he travels a lot. You know, he does stuff with his shoe brands, but he also travels just for fun. And he's been playing street ball where he goes sometimes in Ecuador and Mexico and Argentina. And I asked him about it, and I was really impressed by his answer. Really, really impressed. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and just how, you know, how humble he is, because Jimmy's got a reputation for being, you know, somewhat of a, malcontent where he goes.
Yeah.
But listening to his answer about the importance of travel and what it's done for him and how it makes him just a more well-rounded person was really surprising. And I think it was a really, really informative answer. And so I'm working on some stuff now. I'm going to try to put it together, but I'm going to sort of brand this week's edition as there's the player version of Basketball Passport, and listen to what the players have to say about their experiences abroad, because Jimmy's obviously a multi-hundred millionaire athlete, but when he's a traveler and when he steps on those courts, he's just like us. You know, he just likes to play and have fun. So hopefully I can get all that put together here for Friday, and I'll put it in the show.
Awesome. I can't wait for it. That's going to be great. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Basketball Passport pod here. Please hit that subscribe button. Excuse me. Please hit that like button. If you guys are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@basketballpassport to find the show there. And if you guys are listening to this in its audio form, hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Hit that review button, and let's keep this thing growing. So until Friday, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Leigh Ellis. This has been Basketball Passport. Safe travels, everybody, including you, Jimmy Butler.